welcome all of you to the Mandela House. And now it's my pleasure to introduce to you Mr. Bill Shipsey. Over to you, sir.
Could I just say that since we arrived, some of us from Ireland, some of us from England, some of us from Holland, 3 days ago, we've been made to feel nothing but exceptionally welcome by the Nelson Mandela Foundation, and I would like to pay a particular thanks to Maylene, Vimla and Marietta at this stage. Ladies and gentlemen, for the next hour, or in fact now 45 minutes, Art for Amnesty and Amnesty International invite you to accompany us on a journey to the Republic of Conscience from your own Republic of South Africa. And the journey that we're asking you to take to this Republic of Conscience is a journey that is permitted to us because of the life and example of Nelson Mandela. Before that though, and before the last video presentation, which is about 3 minutes long, and after which Madiba, Nelson Mandela, Nadine Gordimer and the chairperson of Amnesty International, Lillian Gonzalez Hokan-Yu, will enter the room. It is my pleasure to introduce to you the Deputy Executive Secretary General of Amnesty International, Ms. Kate Gilmore. Thank you all.
I must say, Amnesty International treasures this moment. Your presence here with us today, your participation and solidarity in this moment lends us inspiration and great grace. You are granting us moments that will stay with us for a lifetime in our hearts and on our minds. For Amnesty International, which is the largest of the world's organised human rights movements, has a sense of great honour and privilege as we celebrate today. We come together to pay tribute to the human rights activism of Nelson Mandela. For some obscure reason, I'm minded of an old Gaelic blessing. May the wind always be at your back, and may the road rise up to meet you. We commit to having Nelson Mandela at our shoulder. I want to close before Madiba joins us with just one small story. It is of Louis, who is a journalist in Chile. You know, he was tortured by the Pinochet regime and adopted as a prisoner of conscience by Amnesty International. After he was released, he wrote to us, "When you are there naked on a metal bed and they're giving you electric shock, your wife is going to die. And the child she is carrying is going to die. And the other person next to you is being killed. You wish there was an international community, a bigger humanity, that someday somebody will say this has to stop. This is useless. It corrupts everything. It corrupts life. It should not be possible." This is why Nelson Mandela is our ambassador of conscience. His embassy is built on hope. We human rights activists stand with him and at his side as emissaries of human dignity and as claimants of mutual respect and advocates of true justice.
I got the best gig of the night, reading the words written by Ireland's greatest living poet about the world's greatest living human person. This is Seamus Heaney's chorus from The Cure at Troy. Human beings suffer, they torture one another, they get hurt and they get hard. No poem or play or song can fully right a wrong, inflicted and endured. History says don't hope on this side of the grave, but then once in a lifetime the longed-for tidal wave of justice can rise up, and hope and history rhyme. So hope for a great sea change on the far side of revenge. Believe that a farther shore is reachable from here. Believe in miracles and cures and healing wells. Call miracle self-healing, the utter self-revealing double take of feeling. If there's fire on the mountain and lightning and storm and a God speaks from the sky, that means someone is hearing the outcry and birth cry of new life at its term. It means once in a lifetime that justice can rise up and hope and history rhyme. Congratulations, Madiba, Nelson Mandela, and thank you for teaching us that human rights are there to safeguard against human wrongs, and that our spirits can never be imprisoned, no matter how many bars or how high the walls. Thank you, Madiba.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Mr. Mandela and Nadine Gordimer. Welcome, Madiba.
All my friends are here. Thank
They're
you.
all here, Madiba.
Yeah.
And thank you for having survived that brutal assault. We go on with our agenda, please, eh?
Well, the former Chief Justice is the person who sent me to jail.
This is an extract from the Republic of Conscience. When I landed in the Republic of Conscience, it was so noiseless when the engine stopped. I could hear a curlew high above the runway. At immigration, the clerk was an old man who produced a wallet from his homespun coat and showed me a photograph of my grandfather. The woman in customs asked me to declare the words of traditional cures and charms to heal dumbness and to avert the evil eye. No porters, no interpreter, no taxi. You carried your own burden, and very soon your symptoms of creeping privilege disappeared. Fog is a dreaded omen there, but lightning spells universal goodness, and parents hang swaddled infants in trees during thunderstorms. Salt is that precious metal, and seashells are held to their ear during births and funerals. The base of all inks and pigments is seawater, that sacred symbol, a stylized boat. The sailor's an ear, the mast a sloping pen, the hull a mouth shaped, and the keel an open eye. At thy inauguration, public leaders must swear to uphold unwritten law and to weep, to atone for their presumption, that all life sprang from salt, in tears that the sky god wept after he dreamt his solitude was endless. I came back from that frugal republic with 2 arms the one length, the customs woman having insisted my allowance was myself. The old man rose and gazed into my face and said that this was official recognition and that I was now a dual citizen. He therefore desired when I got home to consider myself a representative and to speak on their behalf in my home tongue. Their embassies, he said, were everywhere, but operated independently, and no ambassador would ever be relieved, sorry.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I invite to the podium the chair lady or chairman of International Executive Committee of Amnesty International, Ms. Lilian Gonzalez.
Madiba, Nelson Mandela, Nadine Gordimer, distinguished guests, dear friends. This morning I bring you the warmest greetings of the more than 2 million members who make Amnesty International. Madiba, today I have at my side this global Amnesty International movement. They crowd in behind me, they sit down alongside me, they are leaning over my shoulder. Millions of human rights activists stand with us this morning in more than 70 different countries around the world in order that I might speak their words to you on their behalf. Madiba, I gather our human rights movement before you today to honor you. And being here alongside you, we ourselves have never felt so honored. For you have lived a life of enduring and stubborn faith in the power of ordinary people to meet injustice with principled choices and thereby bring about extraordinary change. Madiba, I know that when you addressed the UN General Assembly at the time of the 50th anniversary of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, you spoke of your hope that history and the billions throughout the world proclaim that it was right, that we dreamt, and that we dared to give life to a workable dream. Today, Amnesty International celebrates all that you have given, have sacrificed, and the hope that you have inspired, so that for all of us, human rights may be a truly workable dream.
Thank you, Ms. Gundar. May I now invite, on behalf of all of us, Ms. Nadine Gordimer to address us.
Let us now praise famous men. That comes from Apocrypha, Ecclesiasticus 44:1. In the canon of human conscience, Nelson Mandela is surely the most famously revered in the contemporary world. In the 20th century, he was one of the few who, in contrast with those who made it infamous for fascism, racism, dictatorship and war, marked the era as one that achieved some human advancement. That is the context in which his name will live in history beyond our new millennium. Nelson Mandela belongs to the world. We South Africans, who are fortunate enough to have him living with us in the present, feel he belongs to us. And above all, we belong to him, if on other and different levels of experience. There are those who knew him in childhood, at his home in the Transkei, and see, beneath the beautiful, aged face formed by extraordinary experiences of underground existence, long imprisonment, the soft contours of a lively youth, soon to be aware of ominous, demanding responsibilities calling within him beyond a personal appetite for life. Mandela has a worldview in unflinching values of all humankind, although his, of course, was first formulated and put into practice in South Africa. He was and is a revolutionary in the positive sense of its third among many meanings in the Oxford English Dictionary. I quote, "To change completely, not only in overcoming a repressive regime, but by fundamental transformation of what constitutes values of human justice and dignity, all the way up from the basic things of food and shelter." For him, victory is not a switch of power, the takeover of seats still warm from the occupancy of the oppressors. It's the absolute necessity to change the nature, the wielding of power, the morality of power, revolutionize the eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, corruption for corruption concept of governance in victory. By recognizing that truly human survival in the home country and the world to which the nation, ours, inexorably belongs, must be in policies, attitudes and acts which in a new and different kind of struggle put the problems of our common humanity urgently first. We have no choice but to live together in city, nation, country and planet. We have no choice but to face one another in this place. It was surely in this concept of what he was Madiba, a black man denied rights of citizenship, freedom of movement, of choice in all walks of life open to a white population. As a prisoner for 27 years, as a free man, finally president of his and our country. Because of this, that Mandela made no objection to receiving the Nobel Peace Prize jointly with the last president of racist regimes in South Africa, F.W. de Klerk. I'm sorry, but I can't resist recalling, as one present at the ceremony, that I found what I was seeing hard to conceive of, and Amnesty hard to swallow. Which just shows how much I, who've learned so much from Nelson Mandela, I have still to learn. Since the award that gives us the occasion, gratefully, of paying tribute to Nelson Mandela, today is that of art for Amnesty, I hope it's not irrelevant to remark that Madiba is a reader. He managed somehow to be a lover of the art of literature, even in prison, where only censored works for study courses were reluctantly allowed. He contrived to receive, through prison walls, some of our contemporary fiction. He's since written about Chinua Achebe, the great Nigerian author, of reading Achebe's work in prison as the writer in whose company prison walls fall down. My banned novel, Burger's Daughter, was smuggled into his Robben Island cell, and the message smuggled back was that he thought well of it. That means more to me than any other opinion. When the world press published lists of the great men and women of the 20th century, those names, the names of Mohandas Gandhi and Nelson Mandela, rose surely above all. There is a link, perhaps not fortuitously, although the Mahatma's years in South Africa, his creation there of the political pressure of non-violence, satyagraha, influenced the non-violent protest tactics that the African National Congress practiced until the ferocity of state oppression refused any hope of reform and led to the creation of Umkhonto we Sizwe. Gandhi and Mandela were totally distinct from one another in other ways, yet the voice calling upon the conscience of the 20th century to be roused against colonialism, whether manifest as the British possession of India or the whites in apartheid South Africa, this impetus came from these two men. We in South Africa and the world have with us as the living touchstone against any desecration of the human spirit, Nelson Mandela. I once wrote that whatever the inhuman horrors of apartheid, we were living in a country where there were still heroes. We had the great lists of Albert Luthuli, Oliver Tambo, Walter Sisulu, Steve Biko, Bram Fisher, Dr. Dadu, Robert Sobukwe, Helen Joseph, and others who will come to your mind. In a life raft roster of the undefeatable beckoning to us, the possibility of freedom. We had Nelson Mandela. We have him still, carrying the conscience of freedom now, its fearless enactment to the moral challenges of a new time in human responsibility for others and ourselves. And I am now going to have, if it can be produced, the extraordinary honor of placing reverently in your hands, Madiba, Nelson Mandela, the Art for Amnesty Ambassador of Conscience Award. It's tribute to and the deep gratitude of the world for your greatness, your conscience.
Ladies and gentlemen, I am pleased to be here today to enjoy the warm company of friends like Nadine Gordimer and to know that Seamus Heaney is with us through his words. That I'm being honored by Amnesty International members from around the world is a joy. And knowing that the honor ambassador of conscience is inspired by the great Irish writer is heartening indeed. Like Amnesty International, I have been struggling for justice and human rights for long years. I have retired from public life now, but as long as injustice and inequality persist in our world, none of us can fully rest. We must become stronger still. Through the work of the Nelson Mandela Foundation, the Nelson Mandela Children's Fund, and the Mandela Rhodes Foundation, I am continuing my struggle for human rights. It is my fervent wish, as I come together with human rights activists around the world today, that we shine the candle of hope for the forgotten prisoners of poverty. Like slavery and apartheid, poverty is not natural. It is people who have made poverty and tolerated poverty, and it is people who will overcome it. And overcoming poverty is not a gesture of charity. It is an act of justice. It is the protection of a fundamental human rights, the right to dignity and a decent life. While poverty persists, there is no true freedom. Amnesty International is right to make the struggle against poverty its focus for the coming years. Amnesty International is also campaigning to stop violence against women. We know that the AIDS pandemic affects us all, and that it is women who bear the most significant burden of HIV and AIDS. As daughters, mothers, sisters, and grandmothers, every day they experience and live out the reality of this pandemic. They are the forgotten prisoners of today. I have spoken before about the need for a turning point. I see this award as one more step towards that turning point. I thank you.
May I now invite members of Amnesty International for a photo session around Mr. Mandela, where he's seated over there. Please come over there for a photo session with Mr. Mandela.
thing you've stayed so handsome.